Hello, can you hear me?
So regardless of who our speaker is, there is evidently some frustration in her ability to communicate with her target audience. For whatever reason, whether it's interpersonal or a matter of time and space or afterlife, this speaker is frustrated with this communication. It's a universal feeling. We've all been there. In 1997, it was Billy Myers.
Can you hear me?
In 2015, it's Adele. And this should be no surprise. Universal feelings, frustrations, and arguments make for great pop songs because everyone can relate to them. Now, before we move forward, 2 quick words about the visual rhetoric here. First, the absence of color persists. The sepia tone literally makes us feel like we're watching something that is old and lifeless almost, right? In other words, it signals that time has passed, that life has been sucked out of the image in this fashion. Another point for the afterlife theory. Anyhow, we also need to consider this guy that suddenly appears. So our first thought is that this is the audience, right? That she's recalling a happy memory. And they were happy once, right? There they are. They're laughing. She was happy with this person, and they are remembering, or rather, she is remembering it. Theory 2 is she's remembering the memory and reminding herself about it. Theory 3, the ghost recalls the happy memories while having lived. What starts to become super interesting about the audio from these flashes of memory bleed into the song itself. We can hear him laughing and talking here, which is an incredible effect.
Hello, can you hear?
Why is it so cool? Because think about its purpose. It's forcing the memory on us, on the listeners, as if we cannot escape it. We want to listen to the song, but we can't. We have this random guy laughing in our ears instead. And in the next few minutes, this will probably persist. The memories will impose themselves on us. There is no erasing them. There is no running away from them. And that is all part of this argument. The inevitable passing of time, the memories that cannot be evaded, and the heavy sadness that this can create. The heavy longing to connect with a person from the past. Okay. Onward.
I'm in California dreaming about who we used to be.
We might consider this an interesting allusion to the song California Dreamin' by the Mamas and the Papas, whose opening lines are actually very reflective of the tone in this video. The lines are,
All the leaves are brown, and the sky is gray.
all the leaves are brown and the sky is gray. The mood is similar, but that song is about how life is so much warmer, happier, and generally better in California. Adele's argument here is that for her, in California or not, the leaves are brown and the sky is gray. The rhetorical purpose of California in this case is to demonstrate the enormity of her sadness. Even California, the land of happiness, of sunshine, and of happy songs, cannot combat this heavy, lonesome feeling that she's feeling.
When we were younger and free.
Okay, younger and free as a couple, as a person, as alive, and not yet a prisoner of the afterlife. In any event, this language builds nostalgia and places an increased emphasis on the passing of time.
I've forgotten how it felt before the world fell at our feet.
Again, there is more nostalgia being built, and again, the ambiguous sense of distance when the world fell at their feet, as a couple with their whole lives before them, or as a young woman whose future awaited her, or as a living person who is still in the worldly universe, literally with the earth, the world, rather than, say, the heavens at her feet.
There's such a difference between us and a million miles.
Here she expresses this fact that's already pretty obvious. There is a difference between them. Something seems to have gone off course. It may be a matter of their relationship. It may be that the older version of herself is unhappy with the younger version's life choices, and so there's this difference between them. Or it may be that the ghostly version is simply noting the difference, right, between the ghostly version and the worldly version, and seeing those things in retrospect, and how easy it is to see things in retrospect. The line, "and a million miles," is either hyperbole because it's a gross exaggeration of how far apart the speaker and the audience really are, which, if this is the case, is a rhetorical device used to demonstrate the immense and impossible distance between them. But if the boundary between the speaker and the audience is a matter of time or a matter of life and afterlife, then a million miles is an understatement, right? It's trying to achieve and demonstrate how impossible that distance is, and it is perhaps falling short. In any event, it is trying to accomplish a very similar purpose.
Hello from the other side.
The riddle for us here is figuring out what the other side is. It might be the other side of the story, if this is a relationship gone awry. It might be the future. It might be death. The idiom, "see you on the other side," comes to mind, right? Either way, there is an incredible distance between the two, insurmountable distance, and this has been emphasized again and again in the lyrics. Also, you'll notice that the sounds from the speaker's memories are still bleeding in louder than ever, almost interrupting the listener's experience. We are forced to suffer through these memories too. We can't block them out. It's an excellent effect.
I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done.
Awesome. So first of all, more hyperbole. I must have called 1,000 times, but more importantly, we finally get a concrete message out of the speaker, and that message is, "I'm sorry." Now, we knew the message wasn't going to be a happy one. It didn't look like she was calling her ex-lover or her younger self or her living self to say, "Hey, everything's great, life's good." As it turns out, she is apologizing, right? The message is an apology. It is important to note that while this is the message, it is not necessarily the purpose. Think about the various apologies that you've made in your life, even the last apology that you may have made. Sometimes you apologize because you are truly sorry and you feel like you must seek and receive forgiveness for the wrongs you've committed, in which case your purpose may be to receive forgiveness, and your message is an apology. Sometimes you apologize because you want to end a fight and you're tired of it. Sometimes you apologize because you don't want to get into trouble. Apologies are messages, but they have different motivations, right? Different motives drive them, and they have different purposes. An apology is not a purpose. So here, the speaker's message, whether it is to her lover or herself, is, "I'm sorry for what I've done." If she's speaking to herself, it's more like, "I'm sorry for what you're about to do," but that's a bit more confusing and a bit more complicated. But okay, makes sense. Onward.
But when I call, you never seem to be home.
There is a significant juxtaposition between these memories and this happy guy that looks like a lot of fun, and the speaker's painful cries. Again, an emphasis on distance. When I call, you never seem to be home. The speaker cannot get a hold of her audience.
At least I can say that I've tried.
Okay, awesome. Here we have argumentative purpose. Nice. Here, the exhausted speaker cries, "At least I can say that I've tried." And this gives us so much insight into her purpose. And that purpose is to make herself feel better about the mistakes that she's made in life. The purpose of this song, of this argument, is catharsis. Catharsis. Okay, what is catharsis? Catharsis is, I'm going to quote Merriam-Webster here, the purification or purgation of emotions. Purgation, as if to purge oneself of emotions, right? She wants to feel better, and even though she can't connect with her target, whether it's her ex or herself from years ago or herself while she was alive, even though that's out of reach, she tries, and that's the entire point of this argument. That's what makes her feel better. The purpose of her efforts, of her argument, exists for no one but herself, for no one but the speaker, to try to make herself feel more like this unresolvable issue is somehow resolved, or at least one step closer to being resolved. Also interesting to note that purgation, as in the purgation of emotions, right, from the definition we looked at a moment ago, shares a root with purgatory, which is where Roman Catholics believe sinners go when they die. It is where Dante goes after he's in hell, when he's trying to get up to heaven. It's purgatory, purgation, right? Purging yourself of your troubles, of your sins. In Dante's Divine Comedy, he's lost in the wood. We already discussed that. And then we have that journey to paradise, which is perhaps what the speaker is trying to do here, right? To achieve that kind of catharsis. But remember, she hasn't achieved it yet. Not even California can fix this problem for her. Now, as we move forward, note the camera angle here. It's in first person, right? Just like first person narrative. You are seeing through her eyes in this memory. You'll actually see your own hands reach out and touch his face in a moment here, which is a very powerful strategy. It's just like those invasive memories, the invasive sound of those memories. It puts the listener, puts you and me in her shoes and creates this heightened empathy. It makes us feel what she's feeling, which is so good. Okay, let's continue.
To tell you I'm sorry for breaking your heart, but it don't matter. It clearly doesn't tear you apart anymore.
So here we receive more details about the apology, that she is sorry for breaking her target audience's heart. Maybe she broke her lover's heart by breaking up with him. Maybe she broke her own heart by breaking up with someone that she should have stayed with. We can't be entirely certain who she is speaking to, but in any case, she says, it don't matter because it clearly doesn't tear you apart anymore. Either he's over it and this hurts her, which is simple and straightforward, or she's referring to breaking her own heart and stating that her future or ghostly self is no longer torn up by this event, and she's being sardonic, right? She's using irony to actually reinforce the pain that it's causing her.
Hello, how are you?
So here we see the beginning of a conversation, and in the video we see her lift a phone. Now, in order to make this make sense, we need to realize that there is no one on the other line. The phone she answered in the video never rang. We would have heard it, right? We heard all of the memories, we would have heard the phone. And the dangling payphone, an artifact at this point, right, because it's a payphone, emphasizes this point. She isn't saying, how are you, because she's anticipating a reply. It's a rhetorical question, which means, as you should know, that it's asked for effect, not for a reply or for a conversation. The same way you might look at a photograph of yourself as a toddler and say, what were you thinking? No response anticipated. Right? You don't expect your toddler self to answer you. It is a rhetorical question asked for effect. Also interesting to think about that payphone and how that is an artifact, and it is a something from the past. And the flip phone she was using at the beginning of the video, it's a very similar kind of connection, very similar kind of effect. Okay, so as we were saying, this entire verse works much like a rhetorical question, much like that device, except it's a little bigger. It's more of a rhetorical conversation than simply a question. The conversation itself here is had for effect. Maybe she's rehearsing the words. Maybe she's lost in her nostalgia. The effect here deepens her longing, deepens her suffering, and hopefully helps her to better accomplish that cathartic purpose we discussed.
It's so typical of me to talk about.
So we're going to start to wrap this analysis up here, but there is still so much left to consider, to analyze, to think, and talk about. If you're a teacher and you're looking for some rockstar lesson plans to delve more deeply into this analysis with your students, you can go ahead and grab them at teachargument.com/hello.